So today's Woking Walkabout 2023, I'm going to start here at Morrison's, which was never here when I lived here from 1974 to 86. This was some railway sidings and stuff, as I remember, and there was a footpath through here that took me up to the twin bridges that I sometimes used to go over to sixth form college in those days. So we'll start our walk here and head down Goldsworth Road and see how things have changed there, and which the answer is, of course, a lot. Now these shops and flats along here, that's all relatively new. There used to be a second-hand electrical shop there and a very nice chippy, actually, that we used to call into on the way home from the disco in about 1977 when I was involved in all that. And this is all that remains of the aforementioned Goldsworth Arms. Obviously it was a lot better when it was a pub, so there's some very happy memories of there, and 21st birthdays and things like that. The Goldsworth Arms, not my most regular pub, but one that I would occasionally come to. Now this here, I think, has always been the Yamaha motorcycle dealers. Certainly around the age of 16 or so, friends of mine were getting their first motorcycles, the Yamaha FS1E, because it was 50 cc's and very street legal. And I think they mostly came from there, but just a little bit along here we have, this is a more modern claim to fame of Woking. This is on the end there, Pizza Express Woking, which has become famous in recent years. I always found it a bit hot and sweaty myself, but apparently royalty don't. And here's another view of that new skyline. Can't decide whether I like it or think it's ugly. It's probably ugly, actually, to be honest. It's a very poor imitation of downtown Manhattan. What they used to be on the end there, where there's the flats that we can see now, there used to be a really good greasy spoon there, and I think it might have been called Sandy's. I think so. I'm just casting my mind back over 40 years now, but that's what I vaguely remember. Now just here in the top end of Goldsworth Road was Ash Plants, the bike and toy shop, and they used to sell, amongst other things at the appropriate time of year, fireworks. And one of my school friends actually spent all his money on a load of fireworks from Ash Plants one year and disassembled them and reassembled them as even bigger fireworks, which was a bit brave. What could possibly have gone wrong, you may well ask? Harper's original camera shop was there, actually. Harper's is no longer with us. It closed down, I think, a year or two ago, having been in the main shopping centre for a while. But it was once there, top of Goldsworth Road. Now look at all this, and none of this was here, of course, before. This is all new, the skyline of Woking. Gosh, isn't that higher and higher and higher? Quite amazing. Now this here, Woking Local, is now a corner shop, but it used to be Rumbelows a very long time ago, and then Rumbelows moved down into the shopping centre, and there's been a few things since. Now I'm really not sure what is going on here, but I have to say that since I first came to live here in 1974, which is nearly 50 years ago, frighteningly, there's always been some sort of major reconstruction going on in Woking. And I've seen sort of about 3 different Wokings come and go in that time, and there's something going on here where they've closed half of the A320 and it goes in a diversion down Goldsworth Road and around, and I can't really see what's going on, to be honest. I mean, they've finished all the building the other side. These are old buildings here which used to include a barber's that I would sometimes frequent, and also there was a nice little diner there that when I worked in Mac Market, used to come there Saturday lunchtimes, really until some of us discovered the pub, because that was the age we were. Now my memory fades a bit on some of these things, but one of the constants that is still here is we still have W.H. Smith. Now I went into that shop from school the day it opened in 1975, and I thought, wow, this is a fantastic shop. Thing is, it's pretty much the same shop now, 48 years later. Quite extraordinary. Well done, W.H. Smith. Well, that's very sad to see, but a sign of the times, I have to say, that the camera business is not what it was. Everyone's using phones now, except me. I'm using a real camera here. Now on this frontage here was Mac Market, where I worked part-time between 1978 and 1980, and it was a thriving supermarket then. Then it got taken over by International, and I don't know what happened after that, but it ceased to be a supermarket at some point, obviously. But it was fun working there, certainly. Well, this is the town square. Changed a lot in 40 odd years, nearly 50 years actually, since it was originally put together here. Been rebuilt very much since, particularly when they replaced the centre halls and the library with the Peacock Centre in the early 90s or thereabouts. There was a little booth just in the centre of the picture here now, where I used to park my bike when I went to work at Mac Market. And such was the state of my bike there that I came home one day after work and to get my bike, and found that someone had stolen my padlock, but not my bike. I think that tells you something about what they thought of my bike. But it got me around a lot for many years, and it was great. So here we are, and the Peacock's Centre still there. The library is a different library, but it's on the site of where the old one was, but the centre hall's long since gone. So that's Concord House, formerly the home of Hogg Robinson, where my brother and now sister-in-law worked and indeed met a long time ago in the 80s. So there we are, that's that. Now here's some more modern buildings. St Andrew's House. Now that used to be just a flat free car park in the late 70s, early 80s, and of course when I was going to work at Mac Market, and the last of the time I was there, that's where I used to park once I'd got my driving licence and my little purple Mini, which I inherited from my mum. Great little car, got me around a bit. Initially, to get across this road, you used to have to go under an underpass here, but I think they realised in the end that people like me were just climbing over the railings anyway, and they set up a proper pedestrian crossing here so that we could do it properly if we were going to do it anyway. So that's how planning works. Now in the central buildings there, roughly in the middle, was Eve French Florist, where my sister worked for many years. Also, I worked there for a while for them, Saturdays, summer holidays and so on, driving around doing deliveries in a little Renault 4 van with an 845cc engine, and purely in the interest of science, because these things have to be done, I seem to remember I did see 80 miles an hour on it once, just out of interest. But it did actually do it, which is quite amazing. This is another homage to the residency of H.G. Wells in the town. This is the Martian, of course, from the film version of War of the Worlds, and taking pride of place in the centre of the town. And the appropriately named, perhaps, Hollywood House replaces the old cinema, which was variously an ABC and a Ritz at different times. It was ABC in the 70s and 80s, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not sure when that ended either, but it's obviously not there now. It's Hollywood House now. H.G. Wells seems to have his own centre now. I might have to have a look at that. Looks interesting. And here we are. This is that multi-storey car park was always here in the 70s even, and beyond that was Skeet and Jeff's, the builders merchants. That now seems to be, I think it's a Holiday Inn hotel actually. They might even have stayed in it one time. Now that there was a Chinese restaurant upstairs with the takeaway downstairs. It's now Chili Spice, and yeah, quite a lot of sixth form sort of evenings ended up in there. And indeed, the downstairs they did a nice little takeaway lunch, which some of us working Saturdays in Mac Market, we used to whiz round after a pint in the pub and pick up a bit of Chinese for our lunch, and because it was very reasonably priced and very good, so you can't say fairer than that. Now those were always two shops, and they are the same buildings, I would say, and they're completely different shops though. The one on the right used to be the Woking News and Mail, their offices, the local paper, and on the left was Maxwell's record shop. Apart from the one round by the school, which sold musical instruments and stereos and all sorts, this one just did records. And I remember I walked in there one day in 1976, it must have been, and I heard a record playing that I thought, wow, that's great. And what it was actually was Love and Affection by Joan Armour Trading, from her first and, funny enough, I would say her best album, which really sort of did impress me at all. Produced by Glyn Johns and really quite listenable too, even this many years on. 1976 and Joan Armour Trading. Now that all changed up there. There used to be an Odeon cinema where the big building on the right at the end is, and also there was a nice little Chinese inn on the left. Only when we first came here in 1974. It didn't last very much longer after that, I don't think. Now, Wetherspoons. Every town's got a Wetherspoons now, and there was no such thing when I was growing up, because this building actually was Woolworths. Home of a great record department, pick and mix, and all sorts of useful odds and sods that you just needed. And it's always hard to understand how it is that a shop like that was so useful actually managed to go bust. The whole nationwide chain went bust in about 2002, I think. Quite extraordinary, but there's a story about Woolworths, I'm sure. Duke's Court, and I'm not sure, I don't know much about this one at all, except that it's a monstrosity, but then there's plenty of those around now, aren't there? So here's a famous place. Another Paul from Woking came from this road here and named one of his best albums, 1995 Stanley Road, after it. And let's have a look down the road, and that's obviously very much modernised since Paul Weller was here, I should think. But there we are, that's it, it's all built up and over now, so that's fairly typical. Stanley Road, great album. Now, although they're opposite the bus station, these shops here have never really seemed to score well in the matter of location, and there's been a lot of sort of businesses in and out there over the years. Most sadly, from my point of view, Airco, the record and hi-fi shop, moved up here from its prime location opposite the cinema and set up shop here, and really sort of just went into decline after that and closed down not longer after that. So not really the best place to be, this part of town, I don't think. Well, what was formerly Barclays Bank. I used to bank with them a long time ago before I decided that they were charlatans and moved to another bank. But it used to be in here. It was a nice building, but now this is now Budgeon's Supermarket and the ultimate corner shop. Albion House there, that was the first of the tall buildings in Woking, and just sort of over here was the second, British American Tobacco Export House, I think it's still called. But the new buildings, of course, dwarf all of that, and there's a lot of building going on here, and it's largely flats, and I think we can go and see why there's such a demand for new flats here. And here's the answer. This is Woking Station. Fast trains to Waterloo in about 25 minutes. No stops, and here's one coming in now. Let's go and have a look. London Waterloo, platform 2. Waterloo in 25 minutes. Good to see that the Albion pub has closed down. That used to have free entertainment on Friday and Saturday nights in the form of knife fights, punch-ups, glass throwing, that kind of thing. I tended not to go there, obviously. So here it is. This is Woking as it is in 2023. No doubt I will come here again and further update on my previous videos, but it's proof that nothing ever stays the same. Now, this is a view of my school that you could never get before, because they've succeeded in demolishing most of the stuff on this road island, but there must be somebody holding out, because this area has been the only bit left for the last couple of years now, and they just don't seem to get rid of it. And I keep coming past here every time I'm over, expecting it to be gone, and it isn't. So I'm not sure what's going on there, nor do I know what they actually have got in mind for this site. But you can have a guess, because this is Woking, so it's probably more flats. But nice view of old school there.